All right, welcome everyone. This is a specially set meeting of the Committee of Bar Examiners. We just met last Friday, but there was an item that came up after that agenda was posted. And because it is time sensitive, we could not wait until our August meeting, which would be our next meeting, to consider it. So we are having this meeting today on that single item. Before I take public comment, Devin, can you take the roll?
Yes. Dr. Bolton,
Here.
Robert Brody, Dr. Cow,
Here.
Alex Chan,
Here.
Jim Efting,
Here.
Kareem Gangora,
Here.
Dolores Heisinger,
Here.
Larry Kaplan,
Here.
Alex Lawrence,
Here.
Paul Kramer,
Here.
Esther Lynn,
Here.
Bethany Peak, Ashley Silva Guzman,
Here.
Vince Reyes,
Here.
David Torres. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's see, for those of you viewing this meeting via Zoom, closed captioning of the video feed is available. To view those closed captions, hover your mouse on the lower part of your screen over the Zoom toolbar, and in there you should see a section labeled CC. Select that option and then select Show Subtitles on the pop-up menu. For those of you still having technical difficulties, please don't hesitate to contact State Bar staff for further assistance. If you're viewing the meeting recording at some point after we've had the meeting, the YouTube video player has a similar function to turn captions on and off. The Board of Trustees of the Bar adopted a public comment policy that applies to all bar committees, including this one. The policy statement says, the State Bar of California welcomes public comment at all of its public meetings and appreciates listening to a wide range of viewpoints that reflect the diversity of California. These public comment rules are designed to ensure that members of the public may exercise their right to be heard, as well as ensure that the State Bar is able to fulfill its obligation to conduct business on behalf of the people of California in a timely fashion. Written public comments could be submitted prior to the meeting to the email address on the meeting agenda. And we encourage you to submit written public comments at least 24 hours prior to the start of a meeting. If you submit them less than 24 hours prior, they will be distributed the following business day. Written materials brought to the meeting for distribution, actually that doesn't apply here because there is no physical location. But if it did, they would be collected by our meeting secretary and distributed after the meeting concludes. For oral comment, persons were encouraged to sign up to speak in advance of the meeting and will be called in the order that they signed up. Persons attending via Zoom will be called in the order they appear in the attendee list. Speakers cannot cede their time to another speaker. It is not guaranteed that all who wish to speak will be able to do so. To facilitate hearing from as many persons as possible, we encourage you not to repeat points that were made by a previous speaker. Simply say you agree with them. And to allow the committee the time to deliberate on the important topic we're discussing today, we will be limiting comments to 3 minutes per person. If you are on Zoom and want to speak, you'll need to raise your hand unless you've already signed up on the sign-up list. To do so, click on the hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom window. I think it might be labeled raise hand. I've forgotten, frankly. If you are participating by phone only, you may virtually raise your hand by pressing *9. That's the star key followed by the number 9 key. Our coordinator will call members of the public, starting with the pre-meeting signups, then the Zoom list in the order that they signed up or have raised their hands. Staff will enable the microphone of the speaker and start our new on-screen timer when you begin to speak. If you cannot see the timer and want us to tell you when you have 30 seconds remaining, let us know when you begin speaking, and we'll do that for you. I gather we have people signed up. So Devin, if you want to take care of calling upon them in order.
Our first public comment will be from Ray Hayden.
Thank you very much. I just want to go over a couple of real quick points on the written material that I had sent in, and I will continue to do so until somebody takes actual notice of this. My suggestion has 4 main goals and objectives, and there are more that I don't even know about yet, but because of the last meeting, I was able to identify some of them. First, save the California Bar millions of dollars almost instantly, millions of dollars. Assure better protection of the general public. Assure superior competence to newly licensed lawyers. Of newly licensed lawyers. Absolutely, positively guarantee a more balanced and diverse representative of California Bar membership. And then there's a couple of things that happen right away if my proposals are worked on. I want to make one comment before I do that. I know I've seen the work that California Bar does. It's phenomenal. And I'm hypercritical of California Bar and some of the things that have happened over the last 10, 15 years. However, when you do something right, it's beyond amazing. So here are the 6 things that could happen right away. The State Bar of California will save millions and millions of dollars starting instantly. Assures greater public protection, assures superior competence, guarantees a more diverse and balanced bar membership instantly, and it only gets better in time. The bar prep companies, who are also stakeholders, are already involved in educational opportunities, and they simply would pivot what they do to provide better material directly related to the actual practice of law for this alternative program, which does include quizzes and exams, and the difference being that they're all designed to aid in passing the program and assuring the results that I'm asking about. Lastly, the law study programs, law schools, and others actually do not need to change a thing as to what they do now, and in fact can actually begin to offer superior programming in the form of courses to aid in assuring far superior graduates that have ever been taught previously. My goals and objectives go far and beyond what a simple bar exam can do. And the MBE is going to be sort of kind of gone in July of 26 when the NCBE introduces the next gen bar exam. So, and I know that California Bar was already practicing and working on getting the first year law students exam to be an online version of an exam. It's absolutely perfect. You only multiple choice questions, you only essays, and you can get the job done and have. You can do the same thing with this, or an even more integrated, far more substantial program that I'm suggesting, which suggesting it doesn't take any more time and energy and will absolutely save you millions and millions of dollars in the future. I thank you in advance for your time and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment will be from Benjamin Cohn.
Thank you. I wanted to start by saying that I think it's okay to save money by adding the State Bar's offices, especially both of them, as test sites instead of some of the other sites you would have to pay for. But the issue that I see is giving testing accommodation applicants a single test site statewide while offering standard applicants multiple test sites that cover diverse geographic regions, both Northern and Southern California. Doing so disproportionately burdens and disparately impacts disabled applicants because many of them, if they don't happen to live near that one test site, would have to travel potentially from the other end of the state to take, at the very least, the in-person MBEs and potentially the whole thing if that's what their accommodations are going to have you make them do. The number of test sites provided to each applicant type should be equalized in both number and geographic diversity, even if the State Bar's offices are used. Second, you should accommodate all applicants remotely who want to be remotely, regardless of what their accommodations is, if that is possible, even with a greater amount of burden, potentially by using non-standard examination security measures. The applicants should not be required to test in person just because it would be more convenient to implement their accommodations in person than remotely and that policy, which was done during 2020 to 2021 of involuntarily assigning applicants to test in person when remote conditions was offered standard to non-disabled applicants, is directly at issue in my Ninth Circuit appeal. So you could be in a pickle if you logistically plan and make all arrangements for what you have in mind, and then sometime close to the February exam, when the Ninth Circuit decision comes down, if it doesn't go your way, you could find out that it is you can't proceed with what you had in mind, but it's close to the exam, and you can't pivot back if you go down this road while you're hoping you prevail. So you should think about that uncertainty in your logistical planning, as well as the very important both policy and compliance issues with requiring disabled applicants to test in person for any part that's offered standard to non-disabled applicants. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any additional public comments. Chair, you are on mute.
Oh, you're still muted? Don't muted.
It was because I was on my script, not the
there you
Zoom
are.
window. Yeah, okay, thank you both for your comments. We'll close public comment and move on to our single item for consideration today, which is under operations and management. And that's a discussion and action on California bar exam cost reduction models, beginning with the February 2024 exam. Not sure who's going to take the lead here.
Amy's going to start, but I will share my screen.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. So we are going to jump into the models here. And I'm going to start with,
Sorry,
oh, no problem.
1 second.
Sure. Okay, great. All right, so we could start on the next slide, Audrey, please. All right, so several factors guided the exploration and development of our cost reductions in the Office of Admissions. First, that bar exam is the single largest expenditure in the Office of Admissions outside of personnel cost. Also, given the State Bar's experience with remote exam administration, as well as the ability to phase back into in-person exam administration, admission staff are prepared to deliver both. And ideally, we're prepared to offer the most efficient exam delivery method. We also are considering the impact of modality changes on applicants with testing accommodations. We'll describe that as we unveil the models themselves. And as the committee may recall, at the conclusion of each of our 3 remote bar exams, we surveyed examinees about their test taking experience. And at the end of all 3 administrations, applicants reported a preference for remote testing compared to an in-person exam. And as a matter of fact, examinees who sat for the following in-person exams and were surveyed about their experience also report the same preference for a remote exam when they're provided that option. So next slide, please. The key changes that we're presenting lie in 3 areas. In consolidating to fewer sites, to delivering the California portion of the exam remotely, and then using the state bar offices for testing accommodation applicants. Before we go into the models, I want to talk about some of the assumptions that are built into them. So first is we are seeing increases in the cost of facilities and proctors. So the projections that we've included here include a 2.3% inflation rate when compared to 2023 prices. As for the number of applicants, we're forecasting based on trends, specifically a decline in the number of examinees as we've experienced from one year to the next. This July exam is one exception, this July 2023 exam. Also, the costs themselves that are included here is the ones that we typically report on after each bar administration. So exam soft license, proctors, meeting space, exam-related expenses, and that includes things like tables, chairs, electrical needs, water, AV support on site, phones, computers, things that are needed to be shipped, off-duty officers, printing material. What we've also included here is staff travel, and then what we did not include, indirect costs include staff time, the use of the state bar office, or grading related expenses. And this allows us to, for an easier comparison from one model to the next. All right, could we move on to then the next screen, which are the models? As you can see here, our cost reduction strategies target the largest exam cost drivers, which include facilities and proctors. So in this first model, this is a no change. So this is administering the exam as it is today. All the components are administered in person. They are administered at multiple test sites across the state. So in February, we have anywhere between 10 and 12 sites across the state. And in July, we have anywhere between 14 and 16 across the state. And that cost is roughly about 5.619 million for the exam administration. This next model is the one that limits the number of sites to 6. So all the components, again, in this model are administered in person, and they include 6 test sites, 3 that are specifically dedicated to testing accommodation, and 3 standard test sites that include standard test site space for standard applicants as well as for testing accommodation applicants. So testing accommodation applicants actually have 6 set options under this model. There are no sites included in Sacramento, Oakland, or San Diego. An estimated cost here is about 4.763 million, an annual savings of $855,500. And these are rough estimates, and we'll talk a little bit more about the actual figures in a moment. So the next model is the 6 sites with 1 remote day. So the NCBE does not allow us to administer the MBE remotely, so that has to be administered in person. So this model envisions the MBE to be administered in person, the essays and the PT would be administered remotely. And as we've done with in 2021, and when we had the exams administered remotely, we would accommodate anybody that has accommodations that require that they be in person. We'd have sites for those folks, as well as for the on remote days, handwriters and people with extenuating circumstances. And so there are 6 sites. Again, there are the 3 testing accommodation sites and 3 standard sites. And those 3 standard sites would also include testing accommodation applicants. Much like the previous model, there are no sites in Sacramento, Oakland, or San Diego. In the next screens, you'll see we're going to note where they are. The estimated cost for this model is about 4.119 million. And this is amounts to about a $1.5 million estimated annual savings for the California bar exam. Now, the last model is similar to the third. Here, we are offering to use to reduce the number of TA sites and to use state bar offices as well. So in this model, again, the MBE is administered in person, and then the essays and PT are administered remotely. There are 4 test sites. So 3 standard sites. Again, those standard sites can also have testing accommodation applicants at that site. 1 TA site, and then the state bar office is also used for TA sites, which would allow space for some of the more testing accommodations that require more space. Here, again, there are no sites in Sacramento, Oakland, or San Diego. The estimated cost is roughly $3.818 million, which amounts to an annual savings of about $1.8 million. Can we go to the next screen, please? Here's a rough order of magnitude cost estimates. So these are currently our cost estimates. Some of these costs may fluctuate by the time we contract with vendors, because typically we contract with facilities about 2 years in advance in order to secure the space, ensuring that we have the space available for the state bar, and it also allows us to lock in rates. We have not done that for 2024, and as we come closer to the exam, there may be other interested parties in our space, and that may impact cost, for example. So again, the figures here really are our understanding of the current cost, with the understanding that these may fluctuate. So as you can see here, and I'm going to go across each of the areas in terms of proctor cost. You can see that we save nearly $1 million when we move from in-person to a remote exam. For staff travel, it stays the same regardless of the modality. We will need all staff to help with this exam. With the ExamSoft license, as you can see here, as we go from one model to the next, it increases. It increases with the remote administration, because as you may recall, we need to pay for additional software. In this instance, we would need the exam ID, exam monitor, and the human review as part of the licensing for a remote exam, and that's what's reflected in here. The facilities is where you'll find the biggest variance from one model to the next. If we reducing the sites to six sites produces probably the largest cost savings, followed by the 4 sites and the 1-day remote at the State Bar office. And so the last item is other exam expenses. I want to remind everybody that includes things like I've mentioned before: the tables, chairs, water, AV, phones, computers, off-duty officers, printing, and material. And these are reduced when we reduce the number of sites, as you can see it going across. We reduce also when we move to remote. And the biggest savings is when we have the combination of administering this remotely and hosting the exam in the State Bar offices. Obviously, there's less of a need to ship tables, computers, and so on, and that's what is reflected in these figures. All right, with that, I think I'm handing it over now to Audrey.
Me. Okay, so which sites are we looking at? I know this question came up on Friday. So there is a venue called Cow Palace in San Francisco, or I think actually just right outside the city. That would be one of the super sites. The Ontario Convention Center, which many of the committee members know if you've visited that before for the bar exam. The LA Convention Center in downtown Los Angeles. And then the testing accommodation sites: Hilton Arden West, a hotel in Sacramento; Hilton Culver City, a hotel in Culver City; and DoubleTree Orange, a hotel in Orange. So this is something we're thinking about in terms of potential exam schedule. We are evaluating multiple possible schedules. The idea being one of the primary principles that we're looking at is to not place any undue burden on our accommodated applicants in any of our decision making, but also in regard to these schedules. But we wanted to share with you a potential schedule, how we could administer 1 day remotely. So what we would call day 1 of testing would start with the National MBE Day, which is a Wednesday. That has to be in person based on the NCBE's requirements. That would be on the day that it's required to be that Wednesday, the last week of February or July. Standard applicants and the accommodated applicants starting, then accommodated applicants, depending on their schedules, might have extended time and test all the way through Friday. The day 2 of testing could potentially start with our content, the essays and PT, remotely the following Monday. And so that would be the first week of March or August, depending on if it's a February, July exam. Our standard applicants and accommodated applicants starting that day remotely, and then testing through that Wednesday, depending on their extra time. And again, I just want to be clear, we have not settled on a schedule, evaluating a lot of other schedules that are possible to not place any undue burden on our accommodated applicants. Okay, well, probably not ready for this yet. I have some motion language we can look at, but I'm going to stop sharing so we can talk.
Does anyone have any questions? Or, of course, somebody's going to.
Yes.
So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Dolores and then Larry.
Okay, so I'm confused about the number of test sites in the 4 sites with 1 remote day. The 4th one, the least expensive option, it says 4 sites with 1 remote day. And then later on, we have the 3 super sites and the 3 accommodation sites. So how does that work?
That is for the model with 6 sites. And Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, that's for, sorry, I should have mentioned that. Those were the sites we're looking at for the model with the 6 in-person sites. For the model where we use the state bar offices, 2 of those sites would be the state bar, and then 1 we've already contracted with one of the hotels, DoubleTree Orange, for accommodated applicants.
Okay, so that's a large enough hotel to be able to accommodate all of the testing accommodations requests that we usually have?
No, that's why we would need to open up our LA office and the San Francisco office to accommodate applicants to test.
Okay. In cubicles?
Oh, we have a variety of different spaces. Yes, cubicles, private offices, conference rooms, depending on whether or not someone would need a private room or if they could have a distraction reduced room.
Okay.
And the idea would be that that all state bar staff would be working remote during, other than those needing to proctor the exam or provide staff support for the exam. Everyone else would be remote, so there wouldn't be, so we would maximize all of the space available at the state bar offices.
I also want
that-
to add one more thing. So the super sites also allow testing space for standard applicants and testing accommodation applicants.
That's where that distracted or less distracting environment, distraction reduced, I think we call it, environment would fit in.
Reduced distraction, yes.
Do you have to negotiate with the union about having people take over somebody's desk, cubicle?
I wouldn't worry about that. We will be, we'll be able to offer up the space that we need to in the state bar offices. We just would, obviously, there are going to be some places that are confidential. We can't let people using space in the Office of Chief Trial Counsel, for example. So we just need to, we close off those spaces, but everything else we'll be able to make available.
Larry, were you done, Dolores?
So, number one, I think this, I would encourage us to save as much money as possible. So I like the, whatever that is, option 3 or 4, whichever one. And, really leave the details to the staff in terms of, how big is it and how much room do we need, and all that other kind of stuff. One of the things I would say is that, the vast majority of people taking the DAR exam today are digital natives. Okay, they're really comfortable with remote whatever, doing stuff online. So I don't really have any concerns. And the more we can go remote and save money, the better, and, you got to wonder when the MBE folks will come into the 21st century, which will be even more helpful. The only concern I have, and I don't really think there's much we can do about it, is by eliminating sites in some fairly significant population centers like San Diego and Sacramento. It's kind of a drag. Those folks are going to have to schlep. I'm sure you've done the, run the numbers, and, it might affect a number of people, but probably less than, obviously Bay Area and LA. But it is kind of, that's kind of a drag that folks will have to schlep, to get to those 2 locations. And I know that when it comes to testing accommodations, the vast majority of the issues are with people who don't have, sort of straightforward physical disabilities, like somebody in a wheelchair or something like that. But, keep in mind that folks with physical disabilities, it's harder for them to do things like having to, get on an airplane to fly, or use, take train or something like that, rather than something that's easily accessible to them. And that's the only issue I would have. I think folks with other disabilities, like ADD or whatever, that's probably not relevant, but I would just, point that out. Otherwise, I think, go for it. We got to save money. It's all about the bottom line. If we don't save money, we're in trouble. So that's it. That's my 2 cents.
Let me get my Zoom screen back. Anyone else have comments, questions?
David.
I saw David. Go ahead, David. You're muted, apparently. Still not hearing you.
Sorry, David, your audio is not coming in. No, still not. Do you want to give David a second to try to see if you can get his audio? I see
Yeah,
Alex and
okay,
Ashley also have their hands.
Ashley?
I think Alex was before me, but I can start. So I think I went to law school in Sacramento, so I have kind of obviously a slight bias on having a Sacramento testing site, but I think out of the 4 options, number 3 seems to be the most fair. I think that regardless, number 4, which is the reduction to 3 standard sites and 1 testing accommodation site, the bar office being used, I would really caution against that option, primarily because I do see issues in requiring people to go out to testing accommodation sites at bar offices when there's also this other testing accommodation site that could offer kind of a different experience. And I don't know if we have any guidance on what that looks like, whether what that 1 testing site is going to be substantially similar to the bar office experience, and how that changes the experience for our testing accommodated students. And that's one of the reasons why I would really towards option 3. I think that offering a remote option could also address some accommodation requests that some of our students might have. And that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if there's any guidance on one of those questions regarding the differences between option 4, testing accommodation site, and those state board offices.
Okay, Alex?
Alex
Yeah,
King? Oh, there
I'm
you
here.
are.
Couple of questions. What is the expected timeline as to when the state bar expects to put forth a formal proposal to the board and the Supreme Court? That's the first question. I can go through all my questions first, but let's just start with that one.
We want to bring your recommendation and these models to the board in July at their July board meeting.
And if the board approves, I guess my understanding would be then to send the proposal to the Supreme Court, and hopefully the Supreme Court would then rule on that by the end of the year. Is that accurate?
Right, well, we have the February bar exam opens October 1st, right? So we have some time pressure to get it all sorted out.
Got it. So the expectation is then to administer one of these options, or at least to try it out, one of these options beginning February 2024.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second question, are we fixed to considering only these four options before us?
Well, this is what we've been working on as the staff to try to look at where we can cut the most costs. I think we're not averse to other suggestions. I know the other day at our meeting on Friday, David mentioned National Guard sites. We just have this timeline as well to consider.
Okay, sounds good. Another question is, just looking at these four options, each of them contemplates in some extent and in some form of remote testing. Have we considered the likelihood that the state bar would need to pay more to ExamSoft for more in-depth testing? And, you know, and to that extent, are we now comfortable that the same technical glitches that really plagued the past several administrations during the pandemic are now summarily resolved?
So one of the models besides as is to test all in person, right? So that's the model number 2, and I can share that slide again. And then we did factor in on the cost slide, and I can show that one too, the increased costs that are incurred when we have to pay additional licenses to ExamSoft for the remote proctoring and monitoring. So, and to your final question, can we predict what technical glitches might happen in 24? I mean, that it could happen that there is an issue. What we don't know, we know that across the remote administrations, there were administrations that had an issue and there were administrations that had no issues. So, you know, I can't speak for ExamSoft. I imagine they're always iterating on their product, but yeah.
Got it. So I think my understanding is the Supreme Court in many ways sort of has spoken on the remote issue. The fact of the matter is we're now doing everything in person. The court certainly would have said, hey, we can continue with the remote, but you know, it didn't, right? And now everything is done in person in terms of future bar exams. What I don't want to do is put Supreme Court in a really tough position where we are only giving them one of these four options as opposed to, you know, all four options. Because, you know, for example, if the CBE decides and approves, let's say, hey, you know, let's go with the fourth one, or the MBE as well as, so the MBE would be administered in person and essays when the PT would be done remotely, then the Supreme Court in many ways, they would, you know, to accept this option, they would, you know, implicitly have to agree that the PT and essay will be done remotely. And so what I don't want to do is to put the Supreme Court in that position, because again, just looking at what the court has done in the past, where everything is done in, you know, administered in person, I certainly think it would be prudent, I think, for us to at least provide the court with multiple options. But that being said, I'm, you know, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of days, and I would like to sort of put forth a fifth proposal for the entire community to consider. And the fifth one, in many ways, is very close to, or very similar in substance to the last, the fourth option, the 4 sites with 1 remote day. I think that's sort of is very close to that option, with the exception that the MBE portion and the essays portion would be done in person, and then leaving the PT portion to be administered remotely. So it's a little modification to that, but otherwise everything else will be the same. There are no sets in Sacramento, Oakland, or San Diego. I'm fine with that, and also using obviously the State Bar offices for TA purposes. So that's sort of my fifth proposal. And the reason behind this, it's pretty straightforward. The MB is likely going to be phased out. I don't think we ever really talked about this. NCB is clearly going to be phasing out MBE. And so, you know, we need to be a forward thinker. We need to think about, well, do we really want to come back in 3 years when MBE now has phased out to, you know, to you think about this option? And so this MBE portion, as much as is relevant now, it may not be relevant in 3 years from today. But separately, though, I still do believe the ExamSoft is simply not ready. And right now we're just making assumptions that they will be capable. But I don't want us to go through what we went through 2 years ago, you know, when there are so many technical glitches, and we're just going back and forth, and, you know, with the State Bar about why these glitches happened and why there, you know, wasn't enough technical support for all the applicants. It really just opened up a can of worms that we knew we couldn't close. And I just don't want to make that assumption. So on that basis, you know, for the entire committee and the staff, my recommendation is put forth the fifth one, you know, for the Supreme Court to consider, which is again just a slight modification to the fourth option, where the essays and the MB portions will be administered in person, leaving the PT to be done remotely. So with that, I yield back my time.
The issue with that, I would say, Alex, is that the MBE day is a full day of testing, and then so that would be 2 in-person days and 1 remote day. And then
I'm aware of that, right? But the savings is counting that MBE would be phased out. That 1.5 day eventually would then become just a half day, right? But there's still savings, I think, to be had, because if the PT now would be done remotely, then but I think the assumption here would be that we would not need as many proctors, or at least all the time, you know, secure proctors would be significantly shortened. So there would be some savings, but obviously I would defer to the State Bar to undergo a study about exactly how much money, if any, would be saved through that option.
David, are you audible?
Alex, can you hear me?
yeah, we got
Yes.
you now.
All right, Alex covered most of my questions. With respect to option number 4, if we were to administer the February exam in with the number 4 model, you know, we don't have many test takers in February, but we go forward to January or July, we obviously have 9,000-10,000 test takers. That model will accommodate, will it not, the July bar takers, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And again, the 4th model also takes into consideration the old school writer guys like myself, right? In other
Right.
words, they would be taking it at one of these locations. So
Right,
my
we-
next question then would be, you folks having given it some thought, are we ready to submit, say, for example, model number 4, the one with the maximum amount of savings, to the trustees, and to basically give our word that we can perform and administer the test under that model this coming February? Can we do it?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a question for the group, right?
Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions before we start to work towards a motion? Okay, if not, I do.
I see Donna raised her hand.
Donna?
Not a question, just a quick statement. So one of the things that we're also working on, Audrey had indicated that that we are still sort of contemplating the different options of how we would spread the exam out over different days to ensure that it creates to ensure that we are not creating an undue burden. We are also exploring more opportunities to have more people with testing accommodations test remotely than we've been able to in the past. I'm trying to figure out what options are available to us to really provide greater ability for even more people to test remotely and have that as an option.
Okay, thanks. My first question is the Cow Palace, about that. It would seem to me when you're forcing people to come in from Sacramento, Fresno, Northern California, north of Sacramento, a location on the peninsula is less convenient for them than, say, something in Oakland. And I don't know where, people have to lodge the night before, if they're at least the one-day takers. And generally speaking, San Francisco is a harder place to do all of that. Why aren't we putting it across the bay in an area that's more accessible?
The Cow Palace.
My
Go
guess is we've already contracted for that space.
We haven't contracted for any space that hasn't been approved. But looking at Cow Palace, it's actually in Daly City, so it's not in the city. So there are, in terms of the parking, BART, hotels, it's an event center, so they do events there all the time. And the price point for Cow Palace versus even what we contract normally, the Oakland Marriott event space, it's much more favorable.
The cost?
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of cost, go back to the calculation slide.
Sure, one second.
That had the cost of facilities for the number 3 as estimated there. It's 1,000 or 1,027,000. That's higher than the second column, which is using 6 sites. Why is that? Is that a math error, or?
Amy,
You see what I'm talking?
Yeah, Amy has the detail behind the slide that I'm showing.
Because a one-day,
I think it's not
This-
using the State Bar office, but using the hotel space for the accommodated applicants. But you're asking in terms of versus column 2.
Yeah, so I can answer
Um,
that unless Amy, but I'm happy to answer that question.
Okay, go ahead, Donna. I'm pulling up the data while you do that.
So, so this, again, this is based on that, the one sort of, option that Audrey showed where the exam would be, day 1 would be Wednesday, Thursday, would be, the MBE would be Wednesday. You would leave the option for the MBE also on Thursday and Friday for accommodated applicants, and then giving people time to travel getting from where they're doing in person to where they're doing remote, starting the remote performance test and essays Monday, Tuesday. So that option holds on to the testing accommodation sites from the beginning of Wednesday through the end of the following week. So it's through the end of the exam the following week. So so there are actually more hotel days that we'd be paying for. And we also built in an assumption that it would cost more to hold that space over the weekend than even if we're not testing there. But there was a concern that we would need to hold the space so we wouldn't have to set up, break down, set up again, and break down again and in order to maintain our ability to get it the following week. So there are actually more hotel days booked for the accommodation facilities. That's why it costs, that's why you saw that higher increase.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting quirk of the splitting the two portions. Do you need statutory changes to have the exam, a part of the exam in the following month? How specific is the statute about when it has to be held?
Yeah, we don't think we need statutory
No.
changes.
Okay, two more. So answering Alex's point, I don't think we can, we just can't jettison the MBE when it ceases to be available to us. We need to find a substitute for it because it is the key tool we use in scaling our written exams. So we're going to have to create something else, or at least be looking into that. And let me suggest that you bring that back the next time we look at our work plan, because maybe we need to be thinking about that as well. I mean, I guess it's an element of what happens after Blue Ribbon goes up, but Alex, I think your assumption that we just would have shorter tests because we wouldn't give the MBE anymore is not one that we can make at this point. And then my final question is, the fourth column would save 1.8 million or almost 1.9 million. And what you've told us is the deficit that we're trying to reduce or eliminate here is about $1 million. So I'm wondering if the excess will go back, we'll find a way to return that to the various people that we are, to use my term, taxing to to subsidize the test takers, both the bar exam and the first year exam, if we'll find a way to reduce their fees somewhat, because otherwise we're taxing them to create a surplus, which doesn't seem appropriate to me, at least.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to keep in mind is that the revenue expectations with the fee increases are estimates, and also these expenditures are estimates, and so I think it's premature to just do the math now and say therefore we are going to be $800,000 in surplus. Obviously the goal, there's never a goal to make a profit. We need to cover our costs. And if in fact we create a system where we are bringing in additional revenue, then obviously that's something that we would look to revising the fees in a way that is not creating the surplus.
Okay, well, I can say our past track record is that we tend to ignore the numbers when we're generating a surplus and only worry about it when we're not bringing in enough money and we're chewing through our surplus. So I'm glad to hear that we're going to be a little more sensitive to both ends of that equation. Any other, let me get any other questions or thoughts? So Audrey, you want to put up the motion?
Yeah, so I just left it really vague to see.
Yeah, we'll put up the motion for a moment and then we'll go back to the four choices, keeping in mind Alex's recommended fifth choice. Although, is it fair to say that Alex's fifth choice would result in less savings than the fourth choice? That would
It would
seem to
have
be
to,
so.
because we'd have to have 2 days of in-person facilities
Okay.
for testing. So it would be more expensive. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it would be more expensive potentially than the as-is model, because we'd have to also then pay for a day of remote testing.
Yeah,
for the
so it might be less savings than the third column then.
It might be less savings than the current as-is model, right? So the as-is model, where is it? That we're projecting with what Amy said in terms of potential increases in the facility charges is 5.6. And if we had to do 2 days in person plus a remote proctored, even the PT, it's not a full day, we'd still have to pay for all the extra licenses per applicant. I think it might be more than the as-is model. So that's just my guess.
Yeah, I think really my proposal, I mean, obviously, if the only metric from which to measure the qualification of these options is based on savings, then no doubt, right, the last option would be, easily the go-to choice. But I think we really need to understand and how to strike a balance between how much money we can save without sacrificing the quality of the exam, right? Right now, it sounds like the last option, we're again putting all the cards on ExamSoft. And I don't need to re-mention all the issues that we have had. Are we comfortable that by the time February comes around, that all of these glitches will be summarily resolved? I can't say that. I just can't. And in fact, I'm less comfortable and more skeptical of what ExamSoft is able to do now than before. And so it's really where we can strike a balance. Where do I say we can save this much without sacrificing versus sacrificing quality, but at the same time we can save $1.8 million. I think that's really where my proposal comes in.
Alex, can I highlight one thing about ExamSoft? So I know that the point of reference that you're making is related to some malfunction in July of 2021. And then in 2022, we went to the California Bar Exam went to an in-person administration. But in the Office of Admissions, legal specialization continued to use ExamSoft after post 2021. And we don't have any reports similar to what we experienced in 2021. That did not happen. So I just want to point out that we're not that far removed from our experiences with ExamSoft since that time. We have not experienced anything that rose to the level of being concerned. Again, I don't want to be the person that is going to guarantee, I don't think anybody can, that there will not be any technical issues in the future. But I also just wanted to highlight the fact that we do have some experience, continued experience after that with ExamSoft, and have been successful at executing the exam. And again, I want to remind everybody that legal specialization is a full day exam that has both components as well, essays and multiple choice sections. And we were able to successfully execute those exams, and there were 11 of them all simultaneously.
Thanks, Amy.
Sure.
No, I sure understand. And I think the one thing, the distinction here is remote proctoring. The software that proctors remotely, right? I mean, even now we're still using ExamSoft. In fact, my understanding is the state bar has been using ExamSoft even pre-pandemic, right? For many years. And so that hasn't changed. But what really changed during the pandemic is the fact that they rolled out this software, remote proctoring, that not only violated or purportedly violated privacy, but there's a lot of facial recognition, there's a lot of data privacy issue, and then there are a bunch of glitches, right? And I still remember sitting through that presentation, they were going to say, we'll be ready and able and willing to launch this, remote proctoring where we could just, look at your room and we can easily tell whether you're really cheating or not. I was in that conference, and somehow they fell short, far short. And so I'm sort of had this shaken faith where I'm just not comfortable, and I certainly don't want to assume. And like you said, Amy, no one could assume anything at this point. But I just want to caution this entire committee: what you're about to vote on is more than just money, right? Money is the only metric, by all means, last option. But we have to consider the quality of the administration, which seems to be something that we are not thinking about entirely. And that's all I'm really saying at this point.
Yeah, and if I could chime in, I think what Alex is pointing out is kind of the severity of a decision that may put us in a bigger bind and will possibly be more, you know, lack the inclusion that we have been vying for. I have concerns still looming from that whole experience. I remember those legal impacts that we had as well. And so I'm not too sure about how I feel about the models that have been presented. I understand we need to save money. I just don't know how far do we go to the point that we're saving money and not providing, a quality exam to the public that, really relies on us for, and really trust us to administer an exam of this size. These are big moments for people that are really life changing, and so I have concerns, but I'm open to listening to kind of see what colleagues or and committee members are in favor for. Because at the most of it, we're going to bear the brunt the way this rolls, and we'll hear the concerns and at a future date, if one of these proposals move through. And so I guess what I'm not hearing from staff is what are some blind spots that we are not seeing, so we could at least discuss those openly and have a very genuine conversation about it.
Let's see, we may have a couple of people who need to leave us real soon. I was trying to find the time. There we go. Yeah, maybe they've left already. Do we still have Larry or Dr. Cal? I don't have. a
Gotta
full-
go.
Yeah, I'm
Pretty
still
quickly.
here. I'm still here.
Okay,
I have a question. If we wanted to raise the dues, that takes an act of the legislature, correct?
yes.
You
Okay,
mean like the
Mayor
license-
fees?
yeah, the bar dues, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That absolutely takes.
Right,
the-
okay. I just want to say this. I get the pearl clutching and the hand wringing over like making sure we have a quality exam. But sometimes in life, you gotta do things bare bones in order to survive. My big concern is we can't keep kicking this deficit can down the road. It's really bad. It's huge. You guys were all in on the conversation we had last week and the month before. We're in a big, big financial hole. And the only way out is to make significant budget cuts, okay, which might not be ideal. And we're going to have to, and yes, if there are legitimate concerns over the vendor, fine. Or go to the legislature and ask for a fee increase. Okay, good luck with that, because we have no control over that. So that's what I'm saying. You keep kicking this can down the road, eventually it goes over a cliff and then you're screwed.
Okay,
I think Vince has his hand raised. Paul?
sorry,
Yeah,
Vince,
Paul.
yeah.
Yeah, Larry, I appreciate your comments because I kind of think those are the hard decisions that have to be made. But I wanted to go back to the point that Alex was making around ExamSoft. We're still a few months out. How much of those issues that came up around ExamSoft have been resolved, or are there talks and some guarantee that they can address these major issues? And I'm aware that it's never going to be perfect, but have the major issues been talked about with them? And is there some reasonable assurance that they can meet some deadlines in addressing those?
So like Amy mentioned, we have the 11 legal specialist exams this year, and we're using ExamSoft and the remote proctoring software to administer that exam. And we used ExamSoft and the remote proctoring software to administer that exam 2 years ago as well, without those incidents. And there were, across the pandemic related exams, there were exams that had the glitch, the July 21 glitch, and then the exams prior to that did not. So I think we have some data with our own exams using ExamSoft in the legal specialist area where there have not been issues. And we are contracting with them to do the October legal specialist exams this year. So if that, I don't, again, it's you can't say what the future will bring in terms of technology issues, but we have that confidence in the software to use them for an upcoming exam in a few months.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I know it's not going to ever be perfect, and that's why we're keeping a record of what happens.
Yeah.
But that's what you said is, giving me a little more confidence that we can move forward with one of these options.
And it is just software, which is constantly updated along with the environments in which the software runs. So glitch. But Audrey, regardless of whether we're in person or remote, we use ExamSoft software for the writing of the exam answers and the uploading of them, correct?
We do, but that is something we've talked about in this meeting. We've done even pre-pandemic to use the software for our California content for the examinees to upload their answers, but that is different to the remote proctoring side. That's, there's different, when we, during the pandemic, when we use the exam ID and exam monitor to do the record and review proctoring, that is something we don't do for an in-person exam. But yes, we do use some of the licensed ExamSoft model to administer even the in-person exam.
My point is that we're somewhat exposed to technical difficulties regardless of whether we continue the current practice or we go to the 6 sites in-person model or whatever. David?
Correct.
I'm going to move that the Committee of Bar Examiners recommends, based upon the information available, that the Board of Trustees consider reduction model number 4, which is the $1.8 million estimated annual savings.
Second.
Now, and I do want to comment, obviously, this is going to go before the trustees for them to make these comments as well. And I'm certain that they're going to want some assurances from ExamSoft based, following the logic that Alex put forth in his argument, as well as Karim. And because again, they're going to want to make sure that they can provide a package to the Supreme Court that is going to be a quality exam. So I'm asking the staff to keep working on ExamSoft and to try to provide us some types of assurances that, that us adopting this measure is going to be a sound measure. We're putting our trust in that.
Okay, we have motion Torres, second Kaplan. I have a question about 4. How many TA sites does that include?
So it's, well, sorry, I keep showing the wrong slide. It's 3. So using our state bar offices, LA and San Francisco, and Doubletree Orange, one of the hotel sites.
Okay.
But also the 3 standard test sites that are noted here have room for testing accommodation applicants. So it's 6.
Right, but yeah, for the remote
But they're
day,
all in the same basic place, so you're not doing anything for, oh wait, one of them was in Sacramento, wasn't it? No, you're not using that one and that one.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
Question.
Alex, and then back to
Yes.
David.
Yeah, go. Sorry, can we go back to slide number 9 for a second?
Number 9, sorry.
So, oh, next slide. The money slide. Sorry.
That's slide number 6. That's a upside down 9.
Actually, I like that. So actually, let's just go back to the 5th one instead. It's much easier and cleaner. So looking at the second option where we have 6 testing sites, if we were to cut that down to 4 testing sites and 1 SB office in the same way we have for the 4th one, how much more savings do we have that we could potentially realize?
Okay, so let me see what you're asking. So having,
So the second, right, the second option was 6 testing sites. But
Uh-huh.
what if we have the same format as the fourth one, where we only have 4 testing sites total, how much savings can we realize from that reduction?
I'm thinking through the 4 sites, because some part of the savings is that I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep switching around, but this day 2, if we're doing that remotely, then we're not needing all the same amount of facility space. And that's part of the savings. So I don't know if I can do that math. Or if we even would have the space necessary for everyone to test in person. That would mean contracting. It might mean contracting more accommodated space, which is why we've settled on 6 sites and not 4. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not
But
really.
I think Alex is asking about an in-person site in San Diego, right?
No, I don't, Alex, you can speak for yourself, but I think you're saying these exact same 4 sites, but two in-person days.
Yeah, so the second option, we have 3 TA and 3 standard sites. What if we have the same numbers as in the last option, 4 testing sites? So 3 standards and 1 TA.
And it's really not 1 TA there because they're going to add the 2 bar offices.
Bar offices, yeah.
That's kind of
Right.
misleading. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, okay, okay. But I would assume we don't have to contract, SB offices. We don't have to pay extra money to secure those space.
Right.
Right.
Okay, right. So I think my question is, how much more savings can we realize if we would just reduce the number of sites under the second option to match the same number of options we have for the last one?
Right, and I'm the last option has more facility savings because we don't need to contract as many spaces for accommodated applicants if people are testing remotely. So I guess this would be, I don't know, right, because we need all the spaces for everyone in person, even if it's 4 sites. And so I guess between Amy and Tammy, if we quickly could think about this, the 4 sites, including the State Bar offices, do they have
Well, you
enough
would save
seats?
you would save contracting for 2 TA sites because you would use the State Bar offices in
Sure,
lieu of them.
but the
So it
seats, the
might
number
get you
of
to
seats,
about the $1 million.
right, but does it have the seats? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just,
I think Audrey's point is that 4th option assumes that
we
a
released a bunch of seats.
a significant number of testing accommodations applicants will be testing remotely, as standard applicants will be testing remotely. And so if you give up those sites, would we have the ability to sit at the State Bar offices and the 1 site, the same numbers that we would have the ability to sit at the 3 sites, since everybody would be in person under that model?
Because the DoubleTree Orange and the 2 State Bar offices definitely don't have enough seats for everyone to test in person on the second day. But if we add if we add all the additional space at these larger sites, it'll just increase costs. Sorry, and it's real. I'm sure I'm being difficult to follow, but like if we have these large sites and contract extra space there to have accommodated applicants along with the DoubleTree Orange and the State Bar offices, it will increase the facility number for this. Right now what we have is 812,000. It would just increase it because we'd have to have more seats. But it doesn't mean that that can't be the option that you recommend, although I think we have this motion on the table currently.
Audrey, in option number 4, which site is the TA site? Sackville? No, not Sackville. It'd be what? Culver
Option number 4, it's a hotel site called DoubleTree Orange in
I see it.
Orange.
Okay.
You still have your hand up, Alex? Did you mean to?
Oh, no, although that brings up a good point. So is the purpose to select one of these 4 options as opposed to, say, ranking them? Because I think now that I'm thinking about it, is there a reason why we're selecting only one of these models as opposed to just ranking them in the order of preference that would then allow the board to agree or adjust that ranking for the Supreme Court to consider? Again, I think my whole purpose is I don't want to put Supreme Court in a corner where they, if they want us to realize savings, this is the only option. That's what I don't want to do. I think Supreme Court would certainly appreciate some flexibility in terms of options that we present to them.
Well, if this is presented like Blue Ribbon, they'll see all the other options that weren't recommended by us, and they'll be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, well, the blue ribbon, it's not meeting anytime soon. And my understanding is all the meetings are now completed. So I don't think there's any more businesses before the blue ribbon commission.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying if it's presented in the style of the Blue Ribbon report, even which there for the alternative pathway for which there was no recommendation, nonetheless, the report spent half of its time talking about the various failed motions. So if this comes to the Supreme Court in the same way, where they see the full chart of the options and then they hear that we recommended one, they'll still certainly have the option to go in another direction.
And Audrey, Donna, and Amy, is it safe to assume that when the Supreme Court does in fact review the option and see the other options, one of you folks will be there to walk them through it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the Supreme Court has any questions, we would, of course, provide them any supplemental information that they need. I feel confident that they will be aware of exactly what was presented today. They will be aware of what is presented to the Board of Trustees. And so whatever this committee feels most comfortable doing, whether it's adopting a single model or ranking them, that we leave up to you. But the board and the Supreme Court will have the benefit of knowing the models that were presented. We would add, a fifth model was also discussed if that's not the one that you select today. So they'll get the benefit of hearing all of your thinking.
And Paul, Jim Efting has his hand raised.
Yeah, Jim.
I call for a vote. I think you got a motion and a second.
This is Michael. I agree. I think we call for the vote.
Okay, Devin.
Dr. Bolton,
Yes.
Robert Brody, Dr. Cow,
Yes.
Alex Chan,
No.
Jim Efting,
Yes.
Kareem Gangora,
No.
Dolores Heisinger, Dolores Heisinger,
Yes.
Larry Kaplan, Alex Lawrence,
Yes.
Esther Lynn,
Yes.
Bethany Peak, Ashley Silva Guzman,
No.
Vince Reyes,
Yes.
David Torres,
Yes.
Paul Kramer,
No.
with 8 yeses and 4 nos, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Staff will take this through the Board of Governors and it'll make its way to the Supreme Court. And we
Aging
will,
yourself, Paul, it's the Board of Trustees.
what did I say, governors?
Governors.
Oh, I'm living in the past. What can I say? Anyway, thank you all. Is there any further business? Jim, do you have your hand up still? No, okay, you took that down. So we are adjourned then.
See everybody soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for making
Bye.
time.
Thank you all. Take care.